5 o'clock, I'll do roll call. McPherson.
Here.
Reddick.
Here.
Fox. Salgado. Kratz. Plucker. Sotolongo is absent. Prestay is absent. Barker is absent. Morgan. Pendrell. Bonet. Koth. Kennedy. Quinn.
Tested one.
Otherwise, I can give him.
Yeah, yours is on, mine did.
I'm just sitting on your share with me because yours isn't working for some reason.
I'm all into sharing.
Just like cabinet.
I can go. Okay. Good evening. Thank you for those who responded. The 2022 Charter Study Review Convention will now come to order. It is Monday, May 16th, 2022. And you'll notice that over my right shoulder, there's a copy of the Open Meetings Law or Open Meetings Act. And what you'll find is in that white notebook, it will give the instructions and information relative to open meeting. As we're here, you will find. Okay. You might notice that as we're getting the meeting going, there may be others here. This is a public meeting, and as a public meeting, all voices are welcomed. We, as a result, when I talk about welcome, we have our illustrious mayor in the person of Jean Stothard, who is here to give both a welcome and opening remarks. Madam Mayor.
Well, thank you and good evening, everybody. There's many familiar faces here, but I just first have to give you a sincere thanks for doing what you're doing. I know it's time consuming, but it is so important. I tell you, we have, and I know the attorneys are going to give you an overview, but we are required by the charter to have a charter convention once every 10 years and a year that ends in 3. Now, where that came from, I don't know, but that's how it's been. So when I became mayor first in 2013, that was in June, I became mayor and had to quickly get a convention together. The first one we assembled had 25 people, and that proved to be a little bit unruly because it was so, Mike was on it, it was so hard to get everybody to come and be present. And so we thought that we would pare this down a little bit this year, and the city council had 7 appointees, I had 8 appointees, and so here you are, and thank you so much for being here. But this is a significant responsibility and commitment for you. The decisions that you make will have lasting impact on our city and our citizens. So this is really important work. The charter requires a citizen-led review. You all bring experience in business and in labor and in nonprofits, neighborhood leadership, and government services to this process. So it's very important, and we tried to get as a diverse committee together as we can. As I said, our last charter review was in 2013. A lot has changed since then, and I might add, so you say it ends in 3. We are required to have one by the end of 2023, but we wanted to have it a year earlier so we could get all of this on the November ballot. So we're actually doing it a year early. But a lot has changed since 2013. Our city has grown, our population has become more diverse and engaged in local government. We know that. So people will be watching your actions and what you are doing. We have a really strong network of neighborhood organizations and community groups. We have a strong development community, involved business leaders and educators, and a supportive, very supportive philanthropic community here in Omaha, which is really like no other city. Do you know, we are in the top 50, obviously, you probably all know that. When we had the census just done, we dropped from the 40th largest city in the country to the 39th. So we're the 39th largest city in the country, so we're not a little city anymore. I have some ideas that I will want you to consider. So will the city council. Citizens will also have a voice. The process works best when the citizens participate. So we want that participation. My office has created a web page to provide information, meeting agendas and videos, and I hope that many will find it worthwhile to follow that process. So we will be as transparent as we possibly can. I urge all of you to listen to each other, to collaborate, to weigh the pros and the cons of each idea, and to have really an honest and thorough dialogue, understanding that any change ultimately will be made by the voters, and then it will become part of our city charter. The city charter was first created by a vote of the people, and any changes that happen have to go back to a vote of the people. And I really do appreciate your willingness to volunteer, and I really look forward to your ideas and your recommendations. And now I would like to introduce the President of the City Council, President Pete Festerson. Pete?
Well, thank you, Mayor, and thank you all for being here and for your willingness to serve. We do appreciate you spending your evenings with us now for the next few months. It's hard to believe it's been almost 10 years since we last did this, and it's also hard to believe that the mayor was involved, and I was also involved in city council president at the time, and now here we are again. I know Mr. Kennedy was involved and Mr. Kratz too, so I know you'll have some background from those times as well. I'm sure you'll find there'll be some similar issues to consider this time around, but you may find there's lots of new issues to consider, and we hope that you do. And I think one thing you will find different is public engagement. I think the public is much more engaged in this process now than they were in 2013, and we do hope that's the case as well. So I'm pleased to see you here in this room. I think this provides a good forum for that. I'm pleased to see they got you all fit up there. I wasn't sure how they were going to do that. There's only 7 of us, so I'm glad they have you all with your spaces and microphones and well spaced out. And also that they have the opportunity for folks to see this on public access television, that it does have its own website, that it is recorded, and I hope you'll consider also having public input from the public, either verbally or in writing or with their own suggestions or both. I think that's a very important part of this process. And to the extent any public ideas are presented that can't be considered due to conflicts in state or federal law or what have you, I do hope you'll spend the time to walk through that and explain that to folks. I think what's been apparent to me over the last few years is there's not a great understanding of this document, the city charter itself, amongst the general public. So spending some time doing that, I think, is also a very worthwhile exercise during the next few months. I also hope you'll take a lens this time to diversity and inclusion. This is a pretty old document, so I think we need to be mindful of those things too as we look through and consider what changes might be favorable to our city and its future going forward. And the last thing I would say is that I hope you do work well together as a group. As you know, the process dictates that whatever is recommended by this body comes to the city council, and the city council ultimately decides whether that goes on the ballot. And I can tell you items that will have a consensus around them versus items that don't have consensus around them are much more likely to rise to the top. So again, I appreciate you being here. Look forward to working with you and look forward to seeing your recommendations. Thanks.
We'd like to thank both the mayor and our president of the city council. So we're going to move on as the agenda dictates, and if you can hear me, hopefully you can. We're going to go on to a presentation of the charter process. And Matt Cooley, the city attorney, and Bernard Inbosh, deputy city attorney, will come forward to make that happen.
Good evening, members of the Charter Convention. As Chairman McPherson said, my name is Matt Cooley. I know some of you, including my former boss, Mr. Kratz. I've had this position since October of last year when the mayor named me as the city attorney, and this is my first charter convention as well, excluding Mr. Kennedy and Mr. Kratz having done this. You will be under the great assistance and supervision of my friend and colleague, Bernard Inbosh. This is the probably second, maybe even third charter convention that Bernard has done, so I will be learning from Bernard, because probably 10 years from now, Bernard might be enjoying his retirement and maybe get to be on the Charter Convention, since that's starting to become a trend now with former city attorneys. I do appreciate the commitment that all of you have demonstrated in agreeing to do this. It's probably a little awe-inspiring. It's probably a little daunting to be like, what are we supposed to do? What is expected of us? What have we gotten ourselves into? Or I wish I wouldn't have answered the phone or the email from the mayor or your respective city council person. But you're here and you're appointed, so it's too late to go back on that. Bernard will provide a better overview of what's going to happen and what the kind of expectation will be going along in this process. But the expectation and what we hope all of you do is take a good look at the charter. The charter is basically the city of Omaha's constitution, just like the state of Nebraska has and just like our federal government has. It's our basically governing body document for the city. All of our ordinances, all of our processes, all derives from the charter, just like our federal constitution does. So it's a little bit longer than the state constitution is or the federal constitution is, but because it encompasses what Omaha needs to have in order to deal with their problems. Omaha is very unique from the rest of the state, and it has its own unique problems and ways to deal with it, and that's why we have a charter, so that it's basically our governing document. I consider the law department kind of the guardians of the charter. It's our job to make sure and review laws and ordinances and other issues that city comes in contact with, comply with the rules of the charter. So that's really what I view kind of the mission of the law department is. What we ask all of you to do is to take a look at the charter and see what needs to be fixed, what needs to be updated. As the mayor says, we've grown and changed. As Council President Festerson just said, Omaha has become more diverse and has different problems and issues to deal with than it probably had 9 years ago when there was the last charter convention. There are things in there that maybe people think really needs to be changed, but because of either federal law or state law, can't really be changed. The law department is here to help you. Me, Mr. Innenbosch, and my other colleague, Ryan Wiesen, over in the corner there, will do that by reviewing things that come in, whether it's ideas from the mayor, the council, departments, the public, or even yourselves, to review, like, is this something we can even do? Because there might be ideas that get presented that are just, we can't do it, it's against federal law. We can't have the charter basically secede us from the union and make Omaha its own country. Can't do that, it wouldn't work out. So the law department is here to help you by looking at those kinds of things and being able to say, yes, this is something we can do, or sadly, no, it isn't something that we can do, but you'll always get a reason why. The law department's role in this process isn't just to slam its fist on the table and say, no, you can't do that. It's to say no, but give you an explanation why, so in case you're confused or someone who's approached you about an idea is confused. So again, this is my heartfelt thanks to all of you for being willing to do this. I am glad that we kind of shrunk the number, and I'm glad that we were all able to fit in this room. People who did it before can tell you that the last place that we used, the acoustics were bad, the temperature was bad, the whole thing was bad in terms of the location. This is a great improvement on it. So I thank all of you for your willingness. I look forward to getting to know and meet some of you who I haven't met before, and now I'll turn it over to the man who's been one of the biggest helps to me in the law department, Bernard Innenbosch.
Started off as short, I think ended up a lot longer than what might be described as short. So I'll try not to be too repetitive and not going over well for me, considering I can't get the mics to work at the first meeting. So I apologize. That was something we'll work on, obviously, as we move forward. Many of the people have said some of the things, the practical things about what the Charter Convention is for. I have provided you a temporary schedule. Obviously, that's subject to the change at the whims of the board. I just wanted to get something on the calendar. I wanted to get meeting rooms reserved. I chose Mondays and Thursdays, figuring those would be less invasive of people's personal time, and I tried to do it in the evening so that it'd be more convenient for the members of the Charter Convention, but also more convenient for members of the public. As the mayor, Mr. Festerson, Council President Festerson, and Matt have all said, this is something that's required each 10 years. 8.15 of the city charter and the notebook that I provided you you have a copy of the charter in there, makes clear that your function is to review the operation of the government of the city under this charter. There are, as Council President Fester said, indicated a lot of misnomers, misunderstanding as to what the charter is. It's not intended to supplant the legislative or executive functions performed by the city council or the mayor, but to set parameters around how government can work the best for the citizens of the city of Omaha. Obviously, this is the first meeting. The next meeting is scheduled for Thursday, May 26th. Throughout this process, I'm going to anticipate that there'll be proposed amendments that one or more of you will ask to be prepared. It would be my belief that generally I, Mr. Weiss, and myself, or Mr. Kuzy will prepare those amendments when you ask. There may be legal opinions that you seek. To the extent we'll try to provide those legal opinions. If we think there's a potential for a conflict, we'll figure out another way to get somebody else to prepare those legal opinions. But we do want to act in an advisory role, and quite frankly, we'll prepare stuff it's not our say whether something is good or bad. We're going to try to work with you, and if you ask for something, we're going to try to accommodate that particular request. The meetings are being videoed. They are being broadcast live, and they should be able to watch meetings, past meetings through the city's YouTube channel. That's on purpose. We're trying to make it more accessible in that regard for people who aren't able to attend to be able to watch. The agendas will be prepared. The proposed rules say 24 hours. I'm going to try to have them ready. Before that, I'll work with whoever is the chair to get those agendas prepared. And then we'll make sure they're posted on the City Charter Convention webpage, which is linked through the mayor's webpage, but also I'll send them to you via email. We did create an email address to allow citizens to be able to make ideas, proposals. It's Omaha Charter Convention at cityofomaha.org. That is on the mayor's website. One of the things that we'll discuss today is how long we leave that open. Obviously, you want to make sure that you have enough time to consider those things, but if we allow things to continue too far to the end, then you're not going to have enough time maybe to consider those things adequately. But that's one of the things that we'll talk about. And I have included in the notebook proposed changes by a number of, I'll say, internal people. You've got some proposals by the mayor, the city council, the election commissioner, and then I'll say city departments, which includes the city clerk and any number of other departments, and then some miscellaneous. Those are things that we can consider short term, and maybe that's my suggestion will be is to put some of those things on the agenda in the short term, but that allows, as you get more involved in the process and have more time to digest what you're doing here, to come up with more ideas and more thoughts to bring up to this group. The rules of procedure contemplate that each meeting will be capped at 2 hours. That's been typically the case. Obviously, the board, you can choose to amend those if you want to. That generally is attempting to achieve a balance between your commitment as volunteers on this charter convention and also allowing for orderly meetings and not to be too disruptive on your personal lives. So if you ever have any questions, don't hesitate to send me an email or give me a call. My emails that I've sent you do contain my phone number on there. Happy to provide any assistance that I can throughout the process. Happy to coordinate throughout the process. And I'm not going to talk more about the charter because everybody's kind of already told you. I know I emailed it to you a couple weeks ago. For everybody, there is another copy in the binder. I kept the binder with the hope that if you got additional things, we could 3-hole punch and insert them so you'd be able to keep them. Your name is on the inside of each of those binders. With the thought that they all look the same, it might be easy for them to get misplaced. Maybe that's the parent in me, but in any event. I also included, last item in the notebook, the report from the 2013 Charter Convention. And the expectation is that when you're said and done, you're going to make a report that summarizes those things that you considered, as well as those potential amendments that you want to make. And as both the mayor and Council President Festerson referred to, any proposed changes that you propose will go to the City Council for consideration, and then if they approve it by ordinance, that's how it gets on the ballot for election. If we want to get things on the ballot for the November election, those questions have to be to the election commissioner by September 1st, which is one of the reasons you'll see that this particular charter convention ends around July 11th to July 14th. I couldn't really push it back any further to allow City Council sufficient time to be able to consider ordinances so that they can put it on the Charter Convention. But that report hopefully will be helpful to you, just kind of seeing what it is. We also do have a court reporter who will be present at each of the meetings who's taking a verbatim transcript, particularly early in the, I'm hoping she's going to be here for all the hearings. That's kind of the intention as best she can. Particularly early on, until she kind of gets to know who people are, we'd ask maybe to identify yourself by name when you speak so that she can make sure that's noted on the record, so that we have a good transcript. And then after that, after it is transcribed, it will be made available to the members of the public as well as to you, obviously. So anyway, I'm happy to help. I enjoy this process. Process matters a lot to me, and the charter review is a significant process in the city of Omaha, and I'll be happy to do anything I can to assist. So thank you.
I can talk louder.
But it won't pick up there.
Okay, thank you, Matt. Thank you, Bernard. I will tell you, Bernard does answer the phone because I've called him already, all right, just to ask him a couple of questions about the process. We're going to move forward with the next item on the agenda, administration of the oaths, and Elizabeth Butler, City Clerk, is welcome to the microphone.
All right. So, does everyone stand? Everyone? Okay. Okay, everyone stand and raise right hand. Is that? I've never done it, so. All right, and then just repeat after me. I state your name.
I, Janet Winnett,
Do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
that I will support the Constitution of the United States,
and the Constitution of the State of Nebraska
the Constitution of the State of Nebraska,
against all enemies, foreign and domestic,
against all enemies, foreign and domestic,
that I will bear true faith and allegiance to the same,
and I will bear true faith and allegiance to the same,
that I take this obligation freely
that I take this obligation freely
and without mental reservation or purpose of evasion,
and without mental reservation or purpose of evasion,
and that I will faithfully and impartially
that I will faithfully and impartially
perform the duties of the office of Charter Convention Member
perform the duties of the office of Charter Convention Member
according to the law and to the best of my ability.
according to law and to the best of my ability.
And I do further swear
And I do further swear
that I will not knowingly commit any act of treason
any act of treason
against the government of the United States or of this state
against the government of the United States or this state
during such time as I am in this position.
During such time
as I am in this position.
So help me God.
So help me God.
All right, let's move forward. So adoption of the rules of procedure. So Bernard was kind enough to send the rules of procedure to us, but they also are located within our binder. We're gonna keep asking you for direction, Bernard. So, let's see.
I'd like to make a motion to adopt the rules outlined in the book. I second that motion.
So let's do this. Remember, the request was that you give your name and then the action. So let's do it again. Give your name and then we'll follow it as protocol.
Sure. Thank you. Mike Kennedy, I would like to make a motion to adopt rules of the convention. Warren Reddick, I second that motion.
Roll call. I got it.
It's been properly moved and seconded that we will approve the rules of procedure as they have been outlined for this Omaha Charter Study Convention of 2022. Roll call. Will we do a roll call? Okay. Roll call.
McPherson.
Yes.
Going to allow for any discussion?
That's fine.
All, sure. Is there any unreadiness? Anybody want to discuss the item?
However, I think it's very important to always offer the opportunity.
I appreciate that. Nope, it's good. Keep me honest. All right. Roll call, please.
McPherson.
Yes.
Reddick.
Yes.
Fox. Salgado. Kratz. Plucker. Sotolongo. Prestai. Morgan. Pendrell. Bonet.
Yes.
Koth. Kennedy. Quinn. Motion passed.
All right. We're going to move on with the election of officers. So just to make it clear, if you're looking at your agenda, it says after my name, interim chair. Translation temporary. All right. So I'm standing in the gap at the moment, but we have the opportunity to elect as a group a convention chair, a convention vice chair, and a convention secretary. And I did ask Bernard a couple of questions about this one because I wanted to make sure it was done decently and in order. We have the opportunity to do a secret ballot, or we could do just a raising of hands. I'm all about transparency. If you have a voting idea, I think you should raise your hand and stand for it. So does that work for anybody else, or are you in favor of a secret ballot? It's not about me, it's about what we want. All those in favor of raising of hands, raise your hand.
Good.
Okay.
There you go.
Those opposed? Okay. We're going to raise our hands. All right. So we're looking for three positions here. We're looking for the role of convention chair, convention vice chair, and convention secretary. Now, in here, Bernard, do we have a listing of all of the roles?
I think there's something there's a mention in the rules of procedure as to what the roles are.
Yep.
So,
Okay. Well, I brought mine with me.
okay.
So in here, it's already outlined what the roles are, and I think that since we just approved it, we'll just take it that you already know what's written. So, is there anybody who would like to nominate somebody for the role of convention chair, or they themselves would like to volunteer?
And me here, I would like to nominate Paul Kratz as chair of the convention.
Okay. We have one name, Paul Kratz.
Janet Bonnet, I would like to nominate myself for the chair.
Janet Bonnet. Okay. Any others? Going once.
I have a question. Ready?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Is there anyone on the committee that's already served in these positions before, either for another organization or on this charter?
Good question. Has anybody here served in a similar capacity either on this charter convention or another?
Committee of sorts. for
Yeah,
another
yeah, yeah.
organization?
For other organizations, yes.
Okay.
Janet Bonnet.
Okay, so why don't we do this? What was the organization and what was your role? Your name, your position, and the organization.
Janet Bonnet, President of Spring Lake Neighborhood Association, President of the Spring Lake Park Team. I'm also the founder and was president for approximately 16 years of the Nebraska Association for Translators and Interpreters. I served on the boards of a variety of nonprofits, and I'm sure if you want me to go into the full list.
We duly noted.
Thank you.
So I can't remember all the boards I've been on. I've been on several local office boards, private sector, medical boards, public sector, and held various positions.
Okay, what was your name?
All credits.
Thank you, Paul. All right, Nedrell McPherson Jr., I have served as the City of Omaha Personnel Board Chair for a few years, and a number of other boards within the City of Omaha and some other regional groups. So right now, we have two names listed, Paul Kratz and Janet. Are there any other names going once?
Great question.
Yes. Yes. Okay. So,
Have you officially then nominated yourself for the position?
I did not officially nominate myself for the position.
I'll nominate Mr. McPherson.
You have to say your name loud. Sorry, the mics aren't working. That's the.
Okay, it looks like we have 3 names now. All right, any others? Then I am going to go ahead and close the nominations at this point for the first position, which is convention chair. Okay? So you know the 3 names of the individuals that have been provided. This is not a popularity contest. This is about rolling up your sleeves, and we already said all voices will be heard. All right? So with that, Paul Kratz, all those in favor of, you can only vote once. Did I mention? I'm not throwing any darts at any other cities.
Why don't we have Ms. Butler read the roll, and each person can name a person, and then we'll that way there's no duplication.
Awesome. Yes, sir.
Beyond previous roles that they've served as business positions, are there any other qualifications that interview Also got Paul Kratz, city attorney for 23 years.
For those who may not have heard, because I heard the ladies over here saying they're trying to hear, Paul Kratz, city attorney, and this is his 3rd opportunity being on the convention. Is that correct?
Two of them all in the role of convention. Since I'm city attorney for 23 years, and the 2 of these.
Okay.
The third one I'm doing right now.
Thank you for the clarification. All right.
Janet Boynette, about 40 years of community activism, paying attention to what's going on in Nebraska government and Omaha government. Participated in a variety of events, activities, protests, and all the rest as a community activist. My skills and abilities as a chair of a committee like this would be, I'm not your usual candidate, and I ask a lot of questions, and I do ask that the rules be followed appropriately and everyone respected. My other skills and abilities, I'm a court interpreter, which means I have an ability to reach out to limited English proficient Hispanic population. And I also have a good ear for legalese because of 30 years of listening to it in the courtroom and interpreting it. Thank you.
Nedra McPherson Jr., I have been involved with the public for over 40 years. I have been served on a number of boards for the last 32 years, and I have been a part of the human resources profession for about 30 years. I'm not trying to win on years. I think my own track record of being a part of the personnel board for more than a decade speaks for itself. Whether I am in a lead position or whether I am a part of the convention proper, I too want to make sure that all voices are heard. I want to make sure that people are treated fairly. I want to make sure that the public is involved in this process. Whether I lead it or participate in it, I choose to be a team player. So choose who you will, and whoever gets the job, do your best work. We're done.
All right.
Okay, McPherson,
I'm gonna vote for myself.
Reddick,
Vote for Jim.
Fox, Salgado, Kratz. Plucker. Sotolongo. Prestai. Morgan. Pendrell. Bonet.
Oh, sorry, Jennifer Bonet.
Koff. Kennedy. Quinn.
I've been tallying as we go, so I can tell you I'll wait for the official.
All right, Paul Kratz has 6, McPherson has 5, and Bonet has 3.
All right, so as we move forward, Paul Kratz, hey y'all, come on. The one thing that hasn't been stated out loud is whoever takes on the position not only is rolling up their sleeves, but they're gonna be busy. All right, so congratulations. We're gonna work together well as a team. I'm gonna continue with now the convention vice chair. Do we have individuals who are interested in this position, whether by self-nomination or by nomination of another member of the charter?
Maxwell Morgan, nominate myself as vice chair.
Jenna Bonet, I would nominate Jim Pendrell for vice chair.
Are there any others? Okay, you got 3. Okay, and I think we'll go ahead. I thought it was a marvelous suggestion earlier for folks to kind of communicate what their qualifications could be. So if you could read off the names and have that person go ahead and give what they believe their qualifications are for the position, I think that'd be fantastic.
First up is Morgan.
Okay. Well, I believe earlier we were speaking on diversity. A little bit about myself. I'm from the South Sudanese community, one of the biggest immigrant communities here in the city of Omaha. And I am the first person from my community to even be appointed into this committee. I believe if we're going to speak on diversity, we have to look outside the box. As far as what I've done, I'm a youth leader in my community. I've served as a youth delegate at the United Nations General Assembly in 2018. I've also served as a youth leader in African Union security briefings in Addis Ababa. And I've also been a board member for One Voice Next Generation, a Sudanese nonprofit in Lincoln. So I've dedicated my life to not only this city, but bringing positive diversity and positive change and changing the narrative of what we see immigrants as. And I believe I'll continue to do that with you guys' help as well as vice chair.
Okay, next is Kennedy.
Just a little bit about myself for those who don't know me. I've been active in Omaha for the past 30 years in various activities, mostly in the areas of education. I served for 4 years on the Metro Community College Board, helped get the culinary school there, and worked on the trades. Then I've been on the Millard School Board for the last 20 years. My accomplishments there, getting early college and having Millard one of the first school districts to adopt that partnership with Metro. I also serve as president of the Omaha Library Board right now, and I've been on there for 6 years. I have previous experience in the city. I served under the mayor on the Omaha Naming Committee. We had to name things in our community. We had to handle like Flanagan Lake. And more importantly, I think for this committee, I was on the committee 10 years ago that handled the charter. I'm a lawyer by trade. I'm very familiar with city charter. I've practiced civil litigation involving the city over the years, and I'm familiar with that. And I would like to lend my time, talents, to this position and represent this board.
Okay, next is Pendrell.
Jim Pendrell, over 20 years government, nonprofit experience, with a master's.
Belt it out.
Yeah. Well, like the
Tim Pendrell, over 20 years, government, nonprofit experience, master's in urban planning. Currently work in legislature on really work appropriation state budget. And yeah, really just community involvement and what got me engaged initially and what I've done with my career. Yeah.
So we can proceed with the roll call, and again, you get one vote, think, ponder, and vote.
McPherson.
Morgan?
Okay. Reddick. Fox. Salgado. Kratz. Plucker. Sotolongo. Prestai. Morgan. Yes. Pendrell. Bonet. Koth. Kennedy. Quinn.
Don't feel like it's election night? It is.
All right, so Morgan has 7, Pendrell has 2, and Kennedy has 5.
Right. All right, we're gonna move on to our third position. It is the convention secretary. You know what the duties are. Again, who would like to self-nominate or who is interested in nominating another?
Nominate Kathleen Powell, that's Kennedy.
Remind everybody, Simone Sanders, I think, was the secretary last time. She moved on to.
Simone did a great job, James.
Are there any other nominations?
Well, I'll go for it again. I'd like to self-nominate Janet Bonnet.
Thank you, ma'am. Going once. Any other nominations? All right, we have 2 names that have been submitted, and we're gonna go for it again and ask you to provide your credentials of sorts on why you think you'd be a good fit for this position.
My name is Kathleen Gill, and I have been a mediator and negotiator for years. I have a master's degree in public policy and service schools. Can you hear me? I gotta speak up. All right. Kathleen Howe, mediator, conflict coach. I have a master's in public policy. I've served on several boards, mostly
Janet Bonnet, again, my credentials are mostly my community activism, as referenced before, being able to serve on this committee and being appointed by Vinnie Palermo because of that skill and that I've shown in being able to deal with diverse populations and in supporting development in Omaha. I've also received the key to the city from the mayor, which is a very strong point for me. I do want to serve. I'm very interested in service to the community, to this convention. I want to see Omaha be the best it can be, and I believe serving in a significant office facilitates that. My ability as a secretary, I'm sure because we'll be having the court reporters working very diligently at all of the meetings. My skills as secretary have been displayed in a variety of organizations that I've participated in that position as, not the least of which were several years in Spring Lake Neighborhood Association. And if you've ever been in a neighborhood association, you can understand that the role of secretary is extremely important to keep the history of the meeting. And I would be very focused on that. Thank you.
The 2 choices are?
Kauth and Bonet. Ready?
Almost. Okay, you have two choices ahead of you. Choose wisely. Choose once. We're ready.
Okay, McPherson,
Cal.
Reddick, Fox, Salgado, Kratz, Plucker, Sotolongo, Presti, Morgan, Pendrell, Bonnet,
Oh, I'm sorry, we let it goes me out. Bonnet.
Kauth, Kennedy, Quinn. Okay, Kauth has 10 and Bonnet has 4.
All right. Congratulations. So the reason I chose to offer to the convention a chance to vote out loud, there are a number of issues that we're going to talk about that might be sensitive, or they might be political in nature, or they might even hit even closer to home. We need to be able to speak our voice and make sure that what we say is well understood by those we're speaking to. This is the beginning of it. For those who were nominated, somebody saw value in you. So understand that you didn't lose, right? For those who were selected, I say to you, we're here to support you. We're going to work like a team. You call on any of us and we will step up to the plate to assist. All right? So as we move on, next is the subcommittee assignments. Can we, go ahead.
I just wanted to give a little bit of background. I created the agenda, I suppose. I put this on here not necessarily to take action today or not, but historically, the Charter Convention has created subcommittees. The 4 that I put on here have been the typical subcommittee structure that has occurred in the Charter in the past. The last Charter Convention, however, the one in 2013, elected not to do subcommittees. I think they felt that they wanted to meet as a board. And quite frankly, I think they were more successful. It was less of an issue than I think people thought it would be. But I wanted to put this back on the agenda. Obviously, the concept of having subcommittees is to allow for people maybe who have an interest in a particular subject to have a more robust discussion, maybe synthesize something down to options, and maybe allow the regular meetings to be more accomplish more in the regular meetings. As I told Mr. McPherson when I spoke with him last Friday, I put at the bottom it could be a discussion item or an action item because it's something that you may not make a decision on today. You don't have to make a decision. The rules of procedure allow you to do it, but that's why I placed it on there. I thought it was something that was worthy of discussion from the board, and obviously ultimately you'll make a decision as to how you want to conduct business.
Okay, well stated. So, according to what Bernard said, we have 1, 2, 3, 4 options for subcommittee assignments. There are others that could be possible, but for right now, there are 4 that have been suggested. Are there others that you're interested in?
Actually, I have a question for previous members of this committee.
Yes, sir. Go right ahead.
Kennedy and Mr. Pratt. Excuse me, elected chair, Mr. Pratt. Could you, either of you, give your explanation of the previous experience, why the committee chose not to have, or excuse me, the board chose not to have those committees at that time? And then after that, I have a question.
Kennedy, my recollection from the last one was this, we didn't have a lot of resolutions for us. The committee
directed that we will go ahead and table the approach using subcommittees until members have had a chance to review them and come back on June 2nd.
Is there a discussion on that?
I'm headed that way. Okay. So, are there any folks who have any kind of reservations or need an opportunity for discussion? If so, give your name and speak your mind.
Angie Flynn, I am in favor of Mr. Reddick's approach, and attached to his motion, would there be time for an opportunity for us committee members to email Mr. Kratz as to what our preferred interests or talents may lend to a specific committee?
If I may respond.
Yeah.
That was a lot my thought this morning. I would send out, everybody should email maybe 2 or 3 preferences, maybe, and then I'll make some selection depending on desires. Split those up.
I would agree, thank you for that motion. Great way to see, all digest the charter, our SNCC, backgrounds, things that, share craft.
By the way, the email is listed as well.
That's okay, we'll take care of that.
I'm gonna send out a revised list.
Yeah.
That's correct.
So Bernard, you had your hand up, please.
I have one other thought just for committees, because I didn't put it on here because it typically hasn't, but I do anticipate that we're at a time where there's more community engagement now than maybe I think we've seen in the past. We've got an email address for people to send suggestions in. It might be worth having a committee that acts as a kind of a first review of the suggestions from the public and tries to kind of put them into, we don't, a lot of them will be the same, and maybe we can categorize them. I don't know how many we're gonna get, but I can anticipate getting a large number. That may be something else to consider, Mr. Kratz.
So just so everybody understands, what we're talking about is our approach. We haven't finalized the list of the subcommittee yet. So that's a separate topic altogether. But the approach is we'll review it between now and June 2nd. Both the committees and the charter have an understanding, and then come back on the 2nd with some kind of plan of action. Okay, any other discussion?
I have, Janet Bonnet, I have a question. It seems that there are several folks here that are very familiar with each other and have had possibly experience in the past with the Charter Convention. We weren't given an opportunity to meet individually or to introduce ourselves to each other during this meeting, which means we haven't really introduced ourselves to the public. So I hope that there will be a moment during this meeting where we can do that and say who appointed us, what district we're in. There may be a list available to us here, but that list may not be something that the public has seen. I think it would be very helpful to all of us to know that.
Okay. There's a lot of time between now and June 2nd, and I would think, somebody else has their hand up? Okay. Go ahead, I'm sorry.
My one outstanding question on the proposal to push the committee assignments to June 2nd is for Mr. Krause and Mr. Kent here, Bernard. Sounds like a very finite timeline here. Will that have any meaningful impact on timeline of getting recommendations in? Or does it need
So your question is it soon, do we have till June 2nd?
Correct.
Okay.
Yes.
Go ahead, Paul.
My thought is June 2nd is kind of ways away.
That's a week from Thursday.
Not giving anybody a chance to do the chart.
So I thought I heard earlier in the comments, that maybe this is a final decision. So would it be appropriate
first thing on the table is for us to decide upon a date. If we change, based on the second to last recommendation, if we go with May 26th, then we need another motion because we have changed what we originally started with. Or we can amend it with the necessary corrections. Then, in terms of the subcommittee, how we handle subcommittees, I think that's a separate question that we should address. Because we're never gonna get done with this one if we keep adding on. So, at least for today, Paul, I'm gonna take this one, all right? All right, thanks, man. All right, so, the motion is what? Because there was a lot of dialogue about whether it's June 2nd or whether it's gonna be May 26th.
Right, you're amending my initial motion for waiting, to pick subcommittees from the date of June 2nd to May 26th, per the committee's recommendation.
Karen, second.
It's been properly moved and seconded that we will move the date from June 2nd to May 26th, and then we'll revisit the topic of subcommittees. Any discussion required? Roll call.
McPherson,
Yes.
Reddick,
Yes.
Fox, Salgado, Kratz, Plucker, Sotolongo, Prestai, Morgan, Pendrell, Bonnet, Kauth, Kennedy, Quinn. Motion passed.
All right. I would like to, while we're still on the topic of subcommittees, are there any other subcommittees that you feel you would like to add to the 4 that we have? And remember, Bernard Indebach suggested a 5th one, which is community engagement. This is when y'all supposed to speak.
My take would be is I think that if we get Paul's correct email address, and Paul give us his phone number too, I think any board member, because the chair has the ultimate authority, is just to contact Paul and tell him what you're thinking, and send an email saying, here's my rank order of what assignments I want to be on, or if there's something there, I think we can circulate that and get the information. I think that would be fine, so whichever one works.
Okay, well, I just want us to be reminded that Paul is leading the committee, but he's leading the voices of the committee. So, we're not asking him to make a decision, we're trying to give him enough input so he can make a good decision.
Well, that's what I'm saying, is we have between now and the 26th, email, call, say, this is what I'm thinking, and we can circulate that around the board. I mean, I think the board goes across, all get to know each other, call each other, email each other, and if we have some ideas, do that, so I don't see that being an issue.
So basically, you're saying that you don't want to make a selection on the subcommittees today, you want us to kind of add it around the email.
Well, yeah, I think that would probably be the better way to go, because decide if we need that. I'm not opposed to any additions, but there may be other ideas from the rest of the board here. I don't know, this is our first meeting here.
You don't have to be hesitant. I just want to make sure we're clear on what you're suggesting. So your suggestion is that we go ahead and dialogue about it via email. That's not a criticism, it's an observation. Okay. All right.
Keeping in mind that the board is a public body, so you can't take action via email. So you need to be cognizant, you can make suggestions, you can exchange information, but you've got to be careful that you're not doing things to take action via email. The action that this board takes needs to occur when you meet as an entire board.
Thank you for that.
Okay, so long, I want to pose a question, maybe some of the more serious ones from the board.
Okay.
If there's 15 of us, and we add another subcommittee, that's 5 to 3 per subcommittee, is that appropriate amount of members per subcommittee? Is that just you? Can you speak to your experience and what's the ideal number per subcommittee?
Perhaps, just from my standpoint, I think it's 3 members, that's be more efficient, everybody else can communicate better, then you bring it to the body as a whole, and make further discussions after that.
So it's not just you in 5 subcommittees, that's the
I'm comfortable with 3 people on every subcommittee, unless the body wants something
as long as there's a quorum in any of our meetings, anything subcommittee is presented to the chair that he puts in front of us to vote on, it doesn't matter how many. It's usually an odd number, so 3 is fine, 3, 5, 7. According to Robert's rules.
Bring it on, man, bring it on. All right.
So I have a question, Jennifer, I'm sorry.
No.
On the selection of the committees, the subcommittees, how are we going to assure that there's a balance of representation from both city council district appointees and mayor's appointees? And if there is a presentation of an imbalance in those committees, how will the voice of the minority members of that particular committee be assured of getting fair representation?
And if all correct, I don't see a desire or need to balance subcommittees out by districts. My thought is that as people send in their desires, be on one committee, this other committee, this other committee, I'll try to put people on the particular committee that they wanted to put on. You'll get the full representation because ideas have been brought to this board. That's what I'm doing.
So translation, the subcommittees bring forth opinions. It's the board as a large group that votes, correct?
Correct.
All right, I think, so does that address what you were asking?
Yes, that was my concern, is that if the recommendations come forward as a resolution to the board, according to Robert's rules, there's no need for a second, and sometimes not even need for discussion. The promise of transparency and making sure that the public understands what's happening along the way in each step, I think that's essential. And so participation in the committees in a variety, to have a variety on those subcommittees is very important.
Julie, a pleasure. If I could, I would think that regardless of the subcommittees and what they're recommending, when it comes to a full board vote on a recommendation, any of us as individual members of the convention would have an opportunity to speak on that, whether you're on the subcommittee that disagree, on a different committee and disagree or agree. I would think that would, I would hope that we're trying to be able to dialogue on that and also have public participation.
That might help me. I prefer to have people meet on committees that they can have expertise in. We're all from Mr. Katz, what we're good at, and what we're figure that out.
So what I'm hearing is participation on a subcommittee does not preclude you from having a voice on other subcommittee topics, correct? Okay, so, Mrs. Bonnet, did we answer and respond to your concern?
Yes, again, I was just mentioning it for emphasis, because we do hope to have, as the mayor said, much more community participation in the convention. And the best way to do that is to make sure that everybody has a voice, whether it be on subcommittees or in the general meeting session. Thank you.
No, we appreciate it. I mean, this is what we're about. We're about listening to everybody's voice. So, we've heard from a number of voices. What is the approach you would like to move forward with relative to subcommittees? Do we identify them now? With there being 4 printed and 1 suggested? Or do you want to bat it around via email and identify committees, which then makes it necessary for our chairman to go ahead and then to collect all the voices and then to group them somehow? There's already a motion.
So delay it over to the next meeting.
Okay.
The motion was seconded, however, or it was voted on. I apologize.
It was.
It was voted.
Right. Correct. Okay, does that work for everybody? There's no motion needed. We're just gonna move forward, and thank you. We have finished subcommittee. See how fast we're moving? Beautiful, beautiful. All right, we're moving on to the meeting schedule. So there was a schedule proposed, and if you look on Charter Convention schedule, which is tab 3, everybody has it. You all have smartphones, and if you don't, you have access to a computer, and if you don't have that, I'm sure you have phenomenal memory. So, with that, this is the schedule that we have. There is a quick question, Bernard. Is based on Open Meetings Act, people cannot attend virtually, correct?
We have not, some meetings can be attended virtually, some cannot. We have not set up to attend these meetings. My question frankly has to be looked at, but my belief is that we would not be able to do that because we're not in the state.
Okay. All right, so what we have in front of us is the schedule. Does the schedule work for your current calendar is the question. Go ahead, I see you. I see you itching. Come on.
I want to make sure the rest of the board has an opportunity to speak, so I have 2
Uh-uh.
years, one month.
Everybody has an opportunity to speak. You can speak as much or as little as you want. Go ahead.
I just want to make sure there's a forum on this day. I see a lot of Thursdays that conflict with my schedule, but that's just my schedule. I'll make whatever sacrifice.
Okay.
Armando, here, I would make a motion to approve the schedule.
And
We could add additional meetings if the board were inclined or needed to as well.
And the subcommittee meetings, are those going to be telephonic in between the dates of these, or?
I assume each subcommittee will determine how they want to conduct their meetings. I don't know that, there's nothing in the bylaw, in the rules of procedure that regulate how those occur. So I would assume they could be telephonic, they could be in person, whatever is most convenient for the members of the subcommittee.
Are notes required for the subcommittee? Notes required.
So they're not meetings. They're not meetings subject to the Open Meetings Act, but obviously you want to have the information that you can provide for the benefit of the full board, so the board gets the benefit of that subcommittee.
Kennedy here, when the subcommittee gives something to the entire body, that'll be reported in public, and so that information will be available to others, so that's what I can do.
Okay.
One more question.
Please.
I'm new at the game here, so I know some of you have a long time experience with the convention, but, so the subcommittee meetings happen, there are no minutes taken, and they are required to, follow up with information or give a report to the full board. Will those reports be in writing and given to the full board prior to the next full board meeting? Or is it, handed out at the meeting, the written?
Currently, as the rules of procedure are written, there's no mechanism to do that. If the board would like that to occur in some other format or require some written report, that's certainly an amendment to the rules of procedure that could occur. I mean, at the end of the day, the will of the board, if there's a process that you want to do, I'll help you try to get there. But right now, there is a process that's established for how that's going to.
So that would be another motion and second after this one is dealt with.
Or
If needed.
you could put on the agenda for the next meeting a request to amend the bylaws, so the rules of procedure. I mean, if we're going to amend the rules of procedure, my preference would be to actually have the language written out so everybody knew what we were doing, as opposed to something that, you make a motion that's a sentence and then I try to write it later, and then some of you may quibble with how I wrote it. So if there's something like that that you're interested in, my suggestion is let me know. I can prepare an amendment to the rules of procedure for consideration by the board. That way everybody has the language in front of them, and there's no question about what people are approving or not approving.
McPherson,
Yes.
Reddick, Fox, Salgado, Kratz, Plucker, Sotolongo, Prestai, Morgan, Pendrell, Bonnet, Couth, Kennedy, Quinn. Motion passed.
All right. We're moving forward, y'all. Smile. Yeah, good to hear that. Good to hear. All right, moving on to the discussion concerning the time period for public input by email.
And I put this on, similar to what I said when I spoke earlier. We are making, we have created an email to make it available to the public to give input. At some point in time, that email should be open so people can do it. Those emails will automatically be generated to me and then I'll collect them. We don't, again, not have to decide it today, but there is probably a point in time where you're gonna want to say, this is the day that we need to get your input by this day so that you have enough time to properly consider what people are proposing and have that kind of discussion. I leave it to you. I would assume a minimum of 3 weeks, but you're gonna have to tell it, and again, we don't have to vote on it today. That was just a thought process if we're going to have that kind of an email.
I have a question about that. So are we talking about two separate things in email? Questions and comments from the public coming into the email, and then separately, how much time we will have to speak after the meeting?
Those are two different things. So one of the things, the chair has the responsibility of the rules of procedure to develop rules for people coming to speak. And there'll certainly be open sessions where people can come speak. We wanted to also make available email for people who either couldn't make it or maybe sometimes people may not feel comfortable talking in front of a group of people, feel more comfortable writing it out, but to try and encourage whatever mechanism that we get public input, or tools we can make it available to people, the better.
Well, I think we're getting a lot of practice in terms of making decisions together. So what do you say, board? Do you, or committee? Do you want to establish that time period now, or do you want to wait until the 26th to do that? Okay, that was one person's vote. What about the rest of them?
I would get like the window Kennedy established because the committees are gonna have to be able to digest the board ultimately all the opinions. And I don't want people having a deadline way out there and then we don't have the time to carefully consider them. So Paul, do you remember, Bernard, do you remember what the time for the public comment was?
I don't even know that we actually set up an email last time for public members, but we did allow people to come to the meetings, and we may have done it.
We took mail though.
We did take mail.
Then there was mail, right? So I'm saying is maybe
What's that thing, the stamps?
set it out like, I don't know, at least maybe 3 weeks, 4 weeks. I don't care what the date is, but have some date where the input's in there and we have time to digest it as a body. That way everyone gets a voice heard, they have a window, and we have the time to deliberate on all these suggestions. I think that's what's important on the email, so.
So one of the things that was mentioned was a minimum of 3 weeks. Does that work for y'all? Because, motions go a long way to making things happen. Hint.
If I were, I'll suggest June 3rd or June 10th as being 2 days. Those are Fridays. June 3rd is obviously 3 weeks away. June 10th is the next Friday, but it's nice to have a cutoff on a Friday for people a lot of times.
How, I think we can have
Kennedy second.
It's been properly moved and seconded that we will have June 10th as the cutoff for public input. Before we vote, any unreadiness or opportunity for discussion here?
Just a couple of questions. One is, how we're gonna publicize this to the public? And we'll public the email, June 10th. And then soon we'll have another date for, actual public presentations.
The schedule is already set out on the mayor's website, and as is the email thing. I just made eye contact with the mayor's communications coordinator, and we will send out a press release to that effect, informing members of the public that they have to make suggestions and publishing that email address.
Also realizing that we have
discussion required?
I believe June 10th is pretty compressed, speaking as a member of the general public, not someone who's used to moving committees like this along so quickly. In order to give people a chance to find out about it, react to it, formulate their ideas, and get them before the subcommittees for consideration, I think it would be better to push it to the next week.
So you're recommending June 17th?
Yes.
Rebuttals to that. As you indicated earlier in your qualifying statement, those who are engaged at this level would be able to move at a much more efficient pace. And so if there's a particular issue that someone feels passionate about, I think they can turn it on in that amount of time. Because we only have so much time to digest it, work within the subcommittees, and bring it close to the table through the chair.
In response to your rebuttal, the newspapers being the only source of information for the majority of the public, maybe sometimes appearing on television. In my neighborhood, there are a large percentage of people who do not receive the newspaper and may not be aware that they have to check the website every week to find out what's happening and what's going on. It's an element of community, those of us who are representing specific sub-districts or city council districts, we need to be able to get our voice heard by the public so that they have a chance to respond. And I think that June 10th date is just too soon for us to get viable responses. Assuming a high level of engagement from the total population may be an error in our transparency and attempts to include the public in the process.
So there's a current motion on the table, and that current motion said June 10th. So if we continue the motion based on vote, then that would let us know whether or not it would be June 10th or June 17th. If you believe it's 17th, you vote against it. If you believe it should be June 10th, you vote in favor. Does that make sense as an approach for you?
I would like,
Yes, ma'am. Go ahead.
I would like to make the June 17th date a friendly amendment to the current motion.
For us to do that, we would have to, okay, hold that thought.
Okay.
Anthony Quest, I have a question for Mr. Bernard. We're talking about, right now we're talking about the email period as well as the public communication period. So for past charter commission, charter conventions, what was the final date that the city heard public testimony? I don't know if I've ever suggested new things for the convention to potentially vote on.
I don't remember the date, Mark. There's always several weeks in there after the final presentation. The board and committee probably have two meetings after all the presentation.
Kennedy, here's kind of my remembrance of this, is that there's two different concepts we're talking about here. It's the general public giving input on, say, I would like something in the charter about mandating bike lanes. That would be an idea. So those are the general ideas, maybe get pigeonholed to the committees, and people can talk about that, something we might take up. But then there's also the debate on what the final things are in the public input at the meetings. So we're gonna have that here. I just think as far as getting ideas, because I think that's why we're having an email for the input, correct? I'm gonna ask the temporary chair here, point of information, this is for the, getting, the email is for the getting information about ideas, correct?
Correct.
Yeah, so I think this is just the input on the ideas. I think we need to have something of substance, and there's gonna be a vote on it, then the public, just like in the city council meeting, they can come here, they can testify, they can
Absolutely.
weigh in like any other meeting and say, I oppose the bike lane idea, I support the bike lane idea. And I think those are two different concepts, so I think it's important to keep the 10th date. That's plenty of time to get ideas in, and then the debate and public input, that allows the time frame like you're talking about in the subcommittees to work on, because we do need 3 or 4 meetings to work on that time frame. It's really condensed,
So having heard all, I would recommend that we move forward with the motion as is, no amendments. If you're not in favor of June 10th, vote otherwise, and then we'll come back. This is a friendly meeting, y'all. gonna just keep it moving forward, and if the June 10th date is not the right date, then we'll revisit, okay? So, roll call,
McPherson.
June 10th.
Well, yes.
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 Reddick. Fox. Salgado. Kratz. Plucker. Sotolongo. Prestai. Morgan. Pendrell. Bonet.
No.
Kauth. Kennedy. Quinn.
Yes.
Motion passed.
All right. And I just, again, I'm going to say this now, Paul, you'll be sitting in this chair very soon. We need to make sure that we understand that a vote in favor or against something is not against an individual. It's a vote in favor of a process that we need to move things forward. We have a defined time frame to get this done. So June 10th it is. Okay, here's another opportunity for you. Our next meeting, when will we meet next? According to the schedule, I know, according to the schedule, is May 26th. I don't think a vote is necessary because we've already talked about it and it's already been decided. So, the next meeting will be in the same location. Even without the microphones, use your outdoor votes. All right, outdoor voice. All right, now, are we agreeing that it's going to be 2 hours and it will be?
Rules of procedure established in the meeting will be 2 hours.
That's what I want to confirm. Okay, that's a beautiful thing. All right. Is there any other business to come before the convention members? Any other business?
I have a question.
Yes, sir.
My question is to address a concern that Ms. Bonet had. Our names, our information is already out to the public so that they do know who represented what district or how they were appointed. That's my assumption. That's correct.
It's out there. It's also, it is listed on the page on the, you can access the mayor's website as well. But I also appreciate Ms. Bonet's concern, which is that that's only as good as somebody accessing the information. It is available on the city's website. I know there was a press release that went out in that regard. There's other means that the board wants to suggest to get that information out. Happy to consider.
I guess any thought process on making the fact that we're doing this more available to the public so that we get as much information as we need in the short time frame that we allot.
So you're talking about, when you say information, you're saying so we can get more community input?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah?
Andrew, but I know there was some conversation earlier about public engagement. Formal motion, but we feel like it's very important thing that we need to greatly increase the marketing channels to get that out there, and we would heavily consider that committee not as one to take inbound feedback for this body to discuss, but as more of a working committee to ensure that we're at as many channels as possible.
I wish Kennedy here to say this. He had the mayor's press person here, and I think she would do anything in her power to get the word out in the community. You would.
Within limits, my friend. Within limits. She's a good lady.
Within limits, I think the mayor's made a commitment to have transparent, so I think if there's anything the committee could say to the mayor's office and to the council, I think Councilman Festerson and Mayor want to have a very open process. I know they'll publicize it all, so I appreciate the website.
Okay. We appreciate all voices. Thank you for everything that has been done, from your opinions to the discussion and to the transparency in voting. Let's make it happen, y'all, together.
Is there any time for public comment tonight? Is that
It's
allowed?
not on the agenda, but is that possible? I don't know. Oh, wow. No, I'm in charge. All right, Paul, buckle up. If you know what, we promised that the public would have input. Now's as good a time as any. Come on.
I appreciate that.
And if you give your name, and if you would give at least the district you represent.
Name and address.
Okay, name and address, same as any other time, okay. And then if you, whatever you say it respectfully.
Of course.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes. My name is Cindy Maxwell Ostick, and I live at 16626 Harney Street here in Omaha. And I guess district-wise, I'm in District Brinker Hardings. Okay. I would like to thank everyone for serving on this charter convention. I'm excited about this process. I'm an everyday Nebraskan. I'm civic-minded, I'm a taxpayer, and I'm a mom. And I want our city to create the best laws possible for our children's futures and for their kids. I ask that, and this follows with what you were just discussing, I ask that you please intentionally and proactively seek input from various constituencies and focus on accessibility, communication, and transparency. And it's important that members work to include people from all backgrounds, including and especially underrepresented neighbors from across the city. Black, brown, Indigenous, and other people of color, new citizens, people from all income and wealth status, especially low-income neighbors, various religions and people even who aren't religious, LGBTQ neighbors, disabled, and various age ranges of our citizens, including young adults, growing families, and retired or elderly. I believe inviting, involving, and listening to the concerns and ideas of all who live in Omaha will make our city better for everyone. And I have seen some communication in our city that did not follow that kind of protocol, and I'm just very concerned about it, and I feel a little nervous to say this, but I just really would hope we get out on the right foot with this convention. Thank you.
Well, speaking on behalf of this group behind me, we're on the right foot because we invited you to come to the microphone. And
I
so
appreciate that.
We are looking forward to all voices, and I'm going to add one to your list, veterans, right? We would like all voices to be represented and to be welcome to that microphone. Do we agree? Yes.
I wish that you would reconsider whether people could testify long distance. That's something through city council that a lot of us take advantage of because we're at work or school or for various reasons it's hard to come down.
Well,
Thank you.
I'm going to point to Ms. David and Bosch to give me some direction on that.
Thank you.
What say you? Thank you. We'll talk.
We can certainly consider it. I mean, it does create logistical problems. The city clerk isn't going to necessarily be present for each meeting, but we can talk about it further.
If I can ask that we lay it over.
There's nothing to lay over. It can be a subject to talk about at the next meeting.
Yeah, if we make it a discussion topic, then at least we cover it. So, we heard your voice. Thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Yes, sir. Or I saw his hand first. Then you. Name and address, please. Speak loudly.
All right, my name is Michael Moran. I live at 13909 Charles Street. I wanted a clarification on the notion of the subcommittee. From what I'm hearing, it sounds as if as input comes in from the community, that it will be given to the subcommittee who will determine yay or nay on various issues, and then they decide what comes to the full committee. So how is it that the public can have the confidence that issues that come in will get a general review or a general thought process versus a committee of three deciding, picking winners and losers? And I just want a clarification on that.
Yeah, I think this is a good one. Anybody want to respond on this one?
I'll respond to that.
Yeah.
I think you can expect that committee will probably forward most of those suggestions to the full committee, except the ones that are perhaps contrary to the Constitution, illegal, things like that. But I think you can expect subcommittees passing on those various legitimate proposals.
Because my concern is that I can attend a meeting, and I do plan to attend every one of these meetings. I'm very, very interested in this process. But my concern is that the subcommittee meetings are not public, and if you folks address an issue, I mean, I can be present and hear what is going on, whereas in a subcommittee, if you're picking winners and losers, that would not be the case. But okay, very good. Thank you so much, and I appreciate everybody's dedication to this process.
Yes. The way I understand it is there are topics Yes, ma'am.
May I make a response to the last
Yeah.
question?
Sir?
I think that a good deal of your concern may be assuaged if we have those reports that are available to the full board, and that those reports on the decision-making process about each of those topics is brought forward without mentioning names perhaps, but at least saying this doesn't apply to the convention, this is something that we would not be able to handle as topics. I think you'd be able to get your answers out.
Well, personally, I would be against reports because, again, I think there is enough, when you look at the, and I've read the city charter, and I think there's enough areas that may come up and that have risen over the last 10 years. And I think that a report does nothing but bog down the process. And because the report's got to come to the committee members and then they look at them and whatever. And I think that is something that is really totally unnecessary, personally.
It would be a way to have a window into the subcommittee decision-making process, but.
But again, as Chairman Krantz said, if it's going to be a process where the subcommittee will bring the issue to this body, then I think, my concern was, is that going to be the case?
Small group decision making is what we.
Correct. I was concerned about the small committee decision making.
Right.
But that sounds like, and the chairman's going to run that situation. It sounds like that is not going to be the situation.
That is not the situation.
I
trust the chair.
As do I, and that sounds good to me.
Right, thank you, sir. Yes, ma'am, name and your address.
My name is Kitrin Zeichel, and I'm the interim managing editor at Noise Omaha. And our address is 1901 Howard Street. And I just want to let you know that I had a chiropractor appointment at 5 o'clock, so I couldn't get here on time. And the doors downstairs were locked, so I thought, oh, well, maybe you have to go in through the courthouse. So I went down there. Those doors were locked. I asked some news people, do you know what's going on with the city charter? One of them didn't even know what the city charter was. And finally, there was a young man with a camera, and he said, oh, there's an intercom button over there. You can buzz it, and someone will let you in. And so I was like, intercom? So I buzzed the intercom, and someone did let me in. But if you could put signs up on the doors for people like me who can't get here by 5 o'clock, and put it on the website, that way the public will know what they have to do.
We're glad you were able to let us know that.
Yeah.
And we will address that.
Okay.
To make sure people can
Yep.
join and communicate with somebody.
Super. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. Right? Anybody else? It's been properly moved and seconded that we will adjourn this meeting of the City of Omaha. Roll call.
McPherson.
Yes.
Reddick. Fox. Salgado. Kratz. Plucker. Sotolongo. Prestai. Morgan. Pendrell. Bonet. Kauth. Kennedy. Quinn. Motion passed. Meeting.
Before you leave, she said motion was passed. Thank you all for your work. We appreciate it. Thank everybody for being here.
6:37.
Bernard? No, I brought there's some water and iced tea and cookies and brownies in the back room for any of the members. Charter convention that want to visit, want to get to know each other better. Yeah, you're all. Excuse me, and we'll pick up your sign statement. I'll pick up your sign oaths, just like, so that you have them, I'll take them. Thank you. Oh, thank you. Thank you. Thank you. All right, anybody else? Bernard, did yours? All right, thank you. Here you go.
Yeah, we need to have them tomorrow too. I wrote down the stuff. Yeah, I'll go get them right now. Can I get your, yeah, can I get your